Hello and welcome to another edition of the Dallas Aftershow here on JLJ Media. I'm James Lott Jr., your host. Thanks so much for listening to our first three episodes or watching them. Yes, that's right. You can listen or watch. They are on any streaming platform you can think of, like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, Apple. They're everywhere under Dallas Aftershow or under JLJ Media. Follow, rate, comment. Tell me what you think about the episodes. I want the discussion to continue. Also, we are here on video on my online network, JLJ Media on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. And also, again, comment, which some of you guys have been doing, commenting, tell what you think. It's been wonderful. I have been getting all of your comments of what you like. My hair is crazy. My hair, yeah. Of all your comments on what you want to see on the show. This show's been going on for a long time. I can talk about this show for years to come. So I'm going to get to certain things like who shot JR, how I feel about the new season. All kinds of stuff. They even have one about Lucy and Ray. So all kinds of stuff will be happening. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to totally talk about it. So we're going to go ahead and talk about all kinds of things on this show. And I hope to get guests on here and everything. So thanks for again. So subscribe, comment, like. Thanks to the Dallas group. Thanks to Dallas Dakota and Ultimate Dallas and all the folks who are out there. Keep the Dallas show name out there. So as you saw on this episode, it's kind of a crossover, not really, but kind of. It's about Gary Ewing and Sue Ellen Ewing. I want to give a shout out to my folks at the KL Rewatch podcast. They talk about Knots Landing. You can go ahead and check that out on all streaming services. My friends Casey and them are doing that show, and Christina. And one day we'll do some kind of crossover together. But I was watching a recent scene. That's what inspired this episode of what might have been. So in the reboot, in the TNT drama that came up, they had Sue Ellen and Gary come to Dallas, and they became close. But in the end, it's like she was paying him for stuff to get help with him. We're helping with Bobby to get these things, and she literally tried to get Val and Gary back together. But I want to talk about them because I thought it was an inspired choice. Gary really was never on Dallas. He was on for appearances here and there. It was known that Gary and Val left. They were in California, and Knots Landing was born. He had West Fork on Knots Landing, which I love. But he was out there, and him and Val went back and forth, married, not married, married, not married. They have Lucy, of course. They have Bobby and Betsy. They have long history. Sue Ellen, of course, was JR. But I thought Gary and Sue Ellen over the years, they never had really anything against each other, for or against each other. But they have the one thing in common: the alcoholism story. They both were alcoholics on each of their shows. So when JR died, it was very interesting to have those to each other's orbits talking about the alcoholism, because Sue Ellen started drinking again when JR died, which again, realistic is, I will say, and I'll talk about this too at some point. JR's funeral, which to me is one of the best episodes ever of Dallas. I loved it so much. It made sense that Sue Ellen would get drunk. And her speech, which we'll talk about all that on that show too, was wonderful. Gary was always a person who ran from Dallas. He didn't want to be in Dallas. He didn't like being there. His character always seemed uncomfortable when he was there. This time around, it felt a little natural. They both were a little older. He wasn't with Val. JR was dead. A brother comforting the sister-in-law totally made sense. They had a natural just ease. It was just like their characters were just there was a natural chemistry. They were age appropriate, so to speak. So, they were right age. And I kept thinking, God, this could be really juicy and good. And as they fall in love, and also he helps her get clean and sober again. What does that mean? Could she be in a relationship? There's so many storyline possibilities. I'm so sad they didn't fully go with it. And there's a scene that just bugged the crap out of me that again inspired this. Sometimes the Dallas reboot would do things that just didn't make sense. It was like they were trying to write soapy writing. So when Sue Ellen calls Valine after Gary tries to get her to get sober, she's like, "I'm done with you, blah blah." He's like, "You're not gonna push me away." She's like, "Oh, okay, I gotta get rid of her all of a sudden." Okay, why couldn't have Sue Ellen fall in love with him, kind of, and have feel for him on some level? I don't know. She calls Valine. Valine rushes to Dallas, which there's Valine, Lucy, and Gary in a room together, and there's no real scene. Gary and Val show up, and there's no real scene. And Lucy just leaves with Bobby. Like, there's no Lucy with her parents. I'm like, why wasn't there a scene? I was just like, there's a wasted opportunity. They're there in the same room together, and there was no scene with them. No real scenes with Lucy and Gary. No real scenes with Valine and Lucy and Gary. I mean, oh my God, one of many things the reboot just did that I didn't care for. But then you have Valine coming into Sue-Ann's office. A bitch is always a bitch, and you're a monster. And she was so angry. And I'm like, and Sue-Ann was like, I don't want your man. Like, take him. Please get together. Like, it's all yours. I'm gonna make sure that if I leave South Fork, you will not be. I'll let know what a monster you are. It was like that classic bitch versus bitch scene, which I usually love. It was kind of fun. The dialogue was fun. But it was like the two wrong characters. Like, it just didn't ring true. I was like, well, why would she hate Sue-Ann? I mean, I see her being bothered by her. Maybe trying to get with Gary because she wanted Gary still, but who cares? It bugged me. But I really thought there was something with Gary and Sue-Ann that could have been really beautiful. Actually, could have comforted each other, grown closer, mature love story. And I still think the characters, it made sense because they're more each other's equals. Like, he's not, even though I said help her get clean and sober, he wouldn't be saving her. It wouldn't be a damsel in distress. Just that when he talked to her, he's like, you know how we are with drinks. We know how it is. You know how it is. You got to work it out. So I just think it was a wasted opportunity. But I loved that they had scenes together. Linda Gray looked wonderful. Ted Shackelford looked wonderful. Even Valley looked good too. Joan Van Ark, she looked great too. I just wish there was something more. It was kind of fun seeing Gary on Dallas, having a storyline on Dallas, not just a drop in and he had a little storyline. So that's my 2 cents on that, I guess. But I wanted to bring that because I thought it was significant enough that it's interesting to have two characters I would have never put together during the whole original run of the series. Just would never thought of those two at all. Never even thought of them. And at the reboot, I was all for it. I'm James Lott Jr. You can follow me where all James Lott Jr.'s are sold at James Lott Jr. on social media platforms. Thanks for watching this or listening. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next Friday for another episode of the Dallas After Show here on JLJ Media.